Good morning. I haven't done a video in such a long time. But I've kind of been through this season with God, just listening. Once again, learning what I'm supposed to learn and just listen. And sometimes we have those seasons where God's going to shut us down and He's going to ask us just to be quiet and just to learn and to soak up His word. So something that I really want to come to you guys about, and it's like, I don't know, it's been a light bulb moment for me. And I've kind of shared it with my kids here and there. I've shared it with a couple other people, but I thought this might just be for everybody. So I've walked through these last 4 months, and I've just kind of been walking through each stage, been going through things and just listening to what God has to say to me. Sorry. And one of the things is obedience. Obedience has been super hit hard ever since Michael died. And I have really just started digging back into the word. So it is obedience. But with that obedience comes full surrender. So when we fully surrender ourselves to God, and I mean, this is not like say a prayer, God, This is like you literally lay it all down, and you just lay it all down to God. And you're like, God, you take my life. You take every desire I have, you make it your desire. Whatever this is, it is all yours. I am all in. Doesn't matter what you got for me, I'm all in. So when we learn to do that, so when we fully surrender ourselves, we hand our heart over and say, clean it out, get all the nasty out, help me to find you. And then when we hand that over, we fully surrender that heart, He's going to ask us to obey. Obedience is key in the Christian walk. Obedience is key to learning how to heal from traumatic events, how to heal from everyday events, or how to be a better parent. You have to learn to obey, and you have to fully obey. So when we lay our heart out to God, and we've fully surrendered ourselves to Him, which that is salvation. The way of salvation is to fully surrender yourself under to God. That's it. And once you fully surrender yourself to God, and now He's going to ask you to obey. So He's going to ask you, I need you to forgive that person. I need you to walk away from this. I need you to dig in here. I need you to read this. And that person walks by, I want you to say hi to them. And you're going to say hi to them. The thing is, we want something easy. We live in a modern world that everything is super easy. Like fast food, we get aggravated if it takes them more than 10 minutes to get our food out the window to us because it's fast food and it's supposed to be fast. Okay, we are in an instantaneous that we want self-gratification right away. And that's not what happens. And just to use some jargon, maybe you don't understand this, but justification is when you're saved. So you come to God just as you are, you surrender yourself to Him, and once you've surrendered yourself to Him, now you're into the obedience. Well, the obedience stage is which is another word people use, is sanctification. So you're sanctifying yourself. So you're no longer trying to live in your flesh, but you are trying to live in the Spirit. So you're being obedient to God out of that Spirit and not letting the flesh in and let the flesh do its work. Okay? So we don't want to go into the flesh work, but we want to live as Christ lived. Then there's glorification, which I know these are large words. Glorification is when we die and we go to Jesus. So meaning our work on here on earth is done, we have left, and now we have gone into glorification. Crazy thing is, I really wish Michael would write letters or something and let me know what heaven's all like, because glorification was something we both, excited to have and excited to see, and I'm excited to see it. I cannot wait to be glorified. So, but when we're working through this, been reading through Galatians and Ephesians and stuff like that, and it's just been crazy about what God has put into us. And like I said, obedience comes. But with the obedience, once we have fully surrendered ourselves, and now we're into obedience, and we're obeying God no matter what He says to us, right? It says, the works of the flesh are obvious. The sexual immorality, moral impurity, promiscuity, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, dissensions, envy, drunkenness, and orgies, and anything similar. So these are all things from our flesh. So if there's strife between you and somebody else, that's somebody working out of the flesh. They're not working out of the spirit. They're working out of the flesh. If they're jealous of you, then that is part of the flesh and not the spirit. And it goes into, drunkenness. If you're drinking and stuff like that, you're living in the flesh. You're not living in the spirit. Sexual immorality. And Dylan and I were talking about this. We were going through these together. And I said, it's really crazy that 4 out of these works of the flesh are all tied to a sexual act. So sexual immorality, moral impurity, promiscuity, and then orgies. These are all sexual acts. So we are not to have sex outside of marriage. It's just not it. So selfish ambition, these things, outbursts of anger, these are all coming when we want to work out of ourselves and not out of God. But he says, he goes, as a warning to you, or those who practice these things, they will not inherit the kingdom of God. So if you're practicing these things, you're probably not a Christian, and you're not trying to work out of your spirit. You're only working out of your flesh. He's like, but the fruit of the spirit, and understand, fruit of the spirit, it's one fruit. It's not multiple fruits. We talk about multiple fruits, but it's only one. And that is, the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So you look at all of this, you can't have outbursts of anger if you have self-control. You can't have selfish ambitions when you're showing faithfulness and gentleness to people. You can't have dissension between people because you're being kind and you have patience with these people. And I'm just gonna put it out there, whoever listens to this and you want to help me out with this would be great. But I feel like this is a stepping stone. So in the spirit, love is pretty easy, right? We can learn to love people. But then we're going to learn how to have joy. And having joy in the hardest times of our lives is super hard, but we have to learn it. Then we can get peace. And then once we have peace, now we can work on our patience. I like how peace and patience, because if we're not living in peace and we're living in strife and jealousy and outbursts of anger and selfish ambitions and envy, and we're all in that, we'll never have patience. We'll never have peace. So our peace has to come from Christ. And once we have peace, now we have patience. And then, so from patience now, when we're patient with people, we can now show kindness. And then kindness will come the goodness of who we are and who God is through us. And then we're going to be a lot more faithful to God because we've worked through all these things. And then we're going to be gentle. And once we have gentleness down, we can be very gentle with our children. We can be gentle with friends. We can be gentle with other people that we come into contact with. And then we have self-control. Self-control just wraps that all up. It is. Because if you can control yourself and you can live through the spirit and control the flesh to not to come out, but for the spirit to come out, that is awesome. So this is all through obedience. We're going to learn these things once we obey God. And when God says move, you move. When God says do, you do. And honestly, don't become like, Noah was asked to build an ark. He built an ark. He had no clue that there was going to be rain. They hadn't seen rain, but he did it. Moses took some convincing, but he finally obeyed God. And I told myself, I said, God, I don't want to be like them. I see how they just angered you because they didn't listen and they didn't just obey. We try to teach our kids to obey right away, and they don't. But we want to strive to teach our kids that obedience to us, quick obedience to us, equals quick obedience to God. And so once you learn to be quick obedient to God, things just come a lot easier, comes a lot faster, because he's not having to deal with you. And then we have, Jonah, who totally disobeyed God, then obeyed God, but was still very bitter and angry towards the people that God saved. So we have ways to learn to be obedient, but once we have surrendered ourselves and we have obedience, we're going to work through those things that the flesh takes care of, and then we have stuff that the fruits of the spirit are going to take. The fruit of the spirit is going to take care of, because we're going to learn how to love and have joy and bring peace, but we're also going to start having that patience, and that patience is going to bring on kindness, and the kindness is going to bring on goodness, and goodness will be faithfulness, gentleness, and then self-control. Because once we have self-control, we've wrapped it all up, and we've gotten to the point that we can control our flesh side, and we can always work through the other side of this. So I just wanted to bring that to you. It's just been something that's on my heart, is that obedience is key. Obedience is key to whatever God calls us to do. But the obedience can only come when we have fully sacrificed ourselves to God. And when we have said, hey, this is all yours. I don't want my desires anymore. I want your desires. And that's what we want to come to. We want you to come to knowing that this is my desire, is to love you and to love you fully. All right, well, you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little long today, but just take the chance, listen to it, and we'll talk to you later.